బ్రాండ్ హైదరాబాద్ కార్యక్రమంలో మంత్రి KTR మాట్లాడుతున్నారు. లైవ్ లో చూద్దాం.
How did you go about bring that confidence in them? And I think there's more investment coming from such groups, right, who thought there's going to be a huge challenge and like say anxiety.
KCR Garu keeps reminding us of one thing. He says, a lot of times industries ministers, IT ministers, trade promotion bodies, we tend to forget one fundamental thing. In pursuit of new investments and new investors, we forget our existing investors. We forget people who've already invested in our state. So he told us one thing. He said, first, take care of your existing investors. If you take really good care of them, they will in fact turn into your biggest brand ambassadors because they have network all over the world. They have connections all over the world in their own business sphere. And they will continue to spread the good word and, that will catch up. It's more infectious that way. So that's the first thing we have done. We actually reached out to all the existing, bodies, HICC, CII, ICI, etc., had multiple rounds of deliberations on what this government is likely to do, what we promised them, and how we see Hyderabad shaping up in the next few years. One of the things when I said initially, when I assumed office as IT Minister and Industries Minister, was I raised some fundamental questions about why in the IT space, why are we lagging behind Bangalore? What is it that this city is missing? That we need to get that X factor, chudza as they call it, how do we bring that in? How do we bring in those elements which will make our city also, kind of rock star, which will also get us rock star status. So therefore, we had that very open dialogue, a very informal dialogue with multiple business houses, business groups in Telangana. And therefore, you see, more than 23% of the investment that we got in the last 6 years has come from existing investors. And more importantly, I think what is the testimony to Telangana's strength today is out of the 2 lakh crores of investment that have come in the last 6 years, like I said, 23% has come from existing investors. And out of these 2 lakh crores, more than 80% actually has been converted into operational. So meaning they have operationalized and not only have expressed an intent, but also have delivered on the promise. Now this is very important from a state perspective, because even I could do a fantastic, summit, investment summit here in HICC and announce that we have gotten 8 lakh crores of rupees of investments, signed in the form of MOUs. But how much of it really gets translated depends on the government's intent, depends on the government's keenness to listen, understand, and ensure that the promises are delivered. Now that's exactly what Telangana government has done under the leadership of our dynamic Chief Minister. That's exactly why I believe the city continues to attract more and more business.
Wonderful. Let me just go back to the history, sir. In June of 2014, after you just took over as the first IT Minister, you had actually, arranged for a meeting with IT industry leaders in Taj Krishna. I'm sure you must be, very clearly remembering this. Many of the IT leaders here were also, part of that delegation. You kind of, articulated and you made a presentation about your vision for IT industry. Right? As you rightly said about Bangalore and why is that we're lagging behind? Why can't we be the number one, right? So we could understand your vision, right, for Hyderabad as to how we want to grow it. From 2014, the exports revenues are about close to 57,000 and odd. And today, you promised that it will just be doubled in about 5 years. So in 2020, we sit here with the numbers of 1,28,000 crores, which is an incredible achievement, right? And the HICC, the industry, we've really, feel pride to take, the step that, okay, we are also the partners in progress, right? And this achievement definitely would not have been possible unless otherwise we had a great amount of initiatives coming from you, right? Interventions from the government and the initiatives that you've taken and the vision that you had, how it's translated into action. So I want to just hear from you as to, I'm sure a lot of hard work has gone in. Just want to understand it, at least in the interest of the audience. We want to hear from you as to how did you, translate that vision to action and into reality.
Bharani, again, I'm not trying to be modest, but the fact is, IT industry is an industry which, doesn't really require a lot from the government other than 2-3 things. 1, skilled manpower. 2, progressive policies. And 3, of course, law and order. These are the 3 important things which go into attracting IT industry. Now, in the last 5 years, when we said it may have sounded audacious when we said initially that the current IT exports will be doubled in 5 years. Initially it was, I think 57,000 crores to be precise, back in 2014-15, to where it is now 128,000. It might have sounded audacious then, but without a question, Hyderabad, had that potential in itself. And secondly, combine that with your abilities to ensure that Hyderabad is marketed properly on a global stage.
Right.
Focus on innovation, focus on ensuring that even emerging technologies are harnessed properly here. And again, I might sound repetitive, progressive and able leadership. These are the things that really go into attracting, some marquee names. Today, the most valued technology companies in the world, all top 5, have, without an exception, made Hyderabad their second home in the world for their largest base.
Absolutely.
Google, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft. See, the credit again goes to the city and its enabling ecosystem and to the fantastic manpower that we have in Hyderabad. Without a question, government of course has been a facilitator, has been an enabler, but I think bulk of the credit should go to our youngsters, to our people who have actually, moved, who've been working here, who've really given the confidence to these investors to come in, set shop, to be able to find the talent right here. For example, Micron, a large company. Initially when Sanjay Mehrotra came here, he said, I'm looking to hire about 2,500 people. I'll be, investing a certain sum. But then he tells me later, within 6 months or I think 8 months, he tells me, I think I'm going to quadruple, not even double or triple. Now that is the power of Hyderabad, that is the power of our people, to be able to ensure that we offer global solutions at scale, to the world, not just to our own.
By the way, Micron is going to be the single largest SEZ in Telangana. That's
Yes.
the kind of promise they've made.
I think they deserve a big round of applause, guys. They're the single largest SEZ in Telangana, and I think all of that has happened in the last 2 years, so kudos to them.
Absolutely. I think you said it so well, sir. I think it's all going to be a collaborative effort, right, with the government being an enabler, and the industry also is working, and the ecosystem has been developed so well that I think, we are in a, not really a self-sustainable mode, but I think with the government intervention, we certainly could just take that big leap forward. So if you look at the overall investment that are actually coming into Telangana, right, as compared to the rest of the states, particularly the FDI, right, we certainly see a lot happening in Telangana, particularly for Hyderabad. And as you rightly said, progressive government is very important, and the government policies are also very, very important. And for example, this recently announced Amazon's 2.77 billion investment, the largest data center, right, is absolutely, I would say, a phenomenal and incredible kind of a news for the industry during the pandemic, to just shorten the arm for us, right? And this happens just not like a simple statement given by Amazon CEO saying that, okay, no, we're going to invest 2.77 billion here, right? I'm sure behind the scenes, a lot of, effort, hard work, focused strategy must have gone in, right? I definitely would say that, I've said it to my lot of industry peers, that you acted as a CEO and the chief marketing officer and the chief sales officer. You done that had many times. You went to Davos and you went to, California, you went to Silicon Valley, wherever it is, name the place. You've been just, like say, donning that cap and then going there, doing all that stuff, right? So at least in the interest of the audience understanding, they should know as to how do you diligently pursue and the kind of perseverance that you or your government, right, puts in to be able to get these investments. And conversion ratio, one more point that I would like to mention. Investments could come, right? They would just make some statements, okay? But converting them to real, actual investments, the ratio, Telangana is rated very high, 40%, as compared to the national average of 23-24%, based on my limited analysis. But that's a huge success factor too, in terms of attracting investment. So how is that made possible?
Bernie, a lot of times, in fact, a decision, an investment decision, particularly when it gets announced, there's a lot of hard work behind the scenes. In fact, with Amazon, if you think about it, our relationship started about 6 years ago. In the initial days, when Amazon was looking to set up a fulfillment center, a basic fulfillment center, they chose Bangalore first. In fact, they had come to us because these were the days in 2014 when e-commerce was still not very well understood by the tax authorities. The local commercial taxes people, the value-added tax back then which existed, the VAT regime. they'd come to us, Amazon officials, initially trying to understand how Telangana is looking at the whole e-commerce gamut. And when we gave them the confidence that Telangana really understands e-commerce and its potential and how we are going to be friendly in terms of, ensuring that our tax authorities, the local state tax authorities, will deal with them, because it's a learning process, so we will work together is what we promised them.
Absolutely.
They were really, really excited because, they had a tough time in Karnataka, the local tax authority. So when they came to us and when they saw how well Jayesh and the entire team responded, they agreed and they set up their first fulfillment center, the largest fulfillment center in India, back in 2015 in Hyderabad. That was the beginning of the relationship. Then they were scouting for, again, a location for their own office. And we went to Seattle all the way. And we had a series of meetings, Seattle and then also in Davos and elsewhere. And then came your largest Amazon office in the world. A 3 million square foot office that you see in Gachibowli, where, because they gained confidence. Because they gained confidence in this government, in this state, that guys actually work as partners and don't necessarily look at us as investors. So then came the largest office. And when it came to their data center, Amazon Web Services today is one of the largest, they contribute, in fact, a significant chunk of revenue to Amazon. So when they were deliberating where to put up their large data centers, once again we met in Davos and we had this discussion. And eventually, it took a bit of time, but eventually about 6-7 months of negotiations and a lot of other things with respect to, incentives such as power tariffs, etc., etc. Eventually, the deal was clinched. So, sales and investment is really about relationship building. It does not happen overnight. You really have to build a relation. You really have to work on it. Series of meetings, a lot of wining and dining, and ensuring that they're taken care of properly and ensuring that there are relationship managers literally, to take care of their every need. This is how government of Telangana has worked in the last 6 years. We went out on a limb. We call ourselves a startup state. In fact, I keep telling a lot of my friends that since we are sitting in this HICC forum and since there are a lot of youngsters from the IT industry, I would say independent India's most successful startup is the state of Telangana, without a question. I think in the short span of 6 years, this state has really stabilized, the state has really outdone itself, and the state has really delivered on a number of counts. So that's what I keep telling my friends also, that we operate with the bent of mind of a startup. And the hunger, the passion that you see in not only me, but my colleague ministers, my colleague MLAs, when it comes to protecting the interests of Telangana, is primarily because of one reason. We fought hard for this state. We have a point to prove, not only to ourselves, but also to the people, the naysayers, who said we could not succeed. So therefore, whenever we do, whatever we do it in full, no half measures when it comes to promoting Telangana, when it comes to protecting Telangana's interests. And that's what has, I think, contributed to the success of the state.
So whenever I talk to you, I always just feel that passion in you, right? Because, even the last conversation I've had with you in your office after the new executive committee members of HICC took over, the very first thing that you mentioned about is, Barney, we want to just kind of, do something to the student community. We want to create cyber warriors, right? I mean, I can definitely relate to your passion. Every time I talk to you, you come up with some brilliant ideas. And that again, just not stays as ideas, but you ensure that that happens. So, I can certainly relate to what you said.
ఇది ఒకటి తెలుగులో చెప్పాలి. తెలుగులో చెప్పొచ్చా?
Please.
అంటే మనందరి షెల్ఫ్ లైఫ్ చాలా లిమిటెడ్. ఇప్పుడు నేను ప్రస్తుతం మినిస్టర్గా ఉన్నాను. Everybody's shelf life is very limited. As a politician, you're the current president of ICI. I'm sure your shelf life is also limited. There's somebody who's going to follow suit next. మన షెల్ఫ్ లైఫ్ లిమిటెడ్ అని తెలిసినప్పుడు, ఇప్పుడు నేను మినిస్టర్గా ఓ 4 కొబ్బరికాయలు కొట్టానా, ఓ 2 రిబ్బన్లు కట్ చేశాను అనుకుంటే వేస్ట్. అలా నాలా వస్తారు, నా తర్వాత వస్తారు, నాకంటే ముందు కూడా ఉంటారు. కానీ అల్టిమేట్గా నేను ఇక్కడ ఉన్నప్పుడు ఏం చేశాను, ఏమైనా చేయగలిగానా లేదా? యూ గో బ్యాక్ హోమ్ విత్ ద ఇన్నర్ సాటిస్ఫాక్షన్. అండ్ అన్లెస్ యూ డూ థింగ్స్ విత్ ప్యాషన్, యూ విల్ నాట్ బీ ఏబుల్ టు డెలివర్. నేను ప్యాషన్ లేకుండా ఏదో మామూలుగా కూర్చుంటాను, వచ్చానంటే వచ్చాను, పోయానంటే కుదరదు. సో దట్స్ ఎగ్జాక్ట్లీ వాట్ ఐ బిలీవ్ ఇన్. అండ్ దేర్ఫోర్ యూ సీ దట్ ఇన్ మీ.
Yeah, and I don't know how else we can articulate so well about passion and what drives with passion. So let me move on to the other sectors, sir, because we've been always talking about IT and pharma. I mean, that's what comes in the news most of the time, right? I know that we have seen a significant improvement and growth, again the economic growth happening in IT and pharma industry. So I know that there
Pharma, the entire life sciences, in fact.
entire life sciences, including biotechnology and all that stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for correcting me. And so now, is the government targeting any other sectors? I know we've been hearing a lot, but I just wanted to hear from you, targeting many other sectors wherein we want to just kind of look at major investments coming in the next couple of years, right? And very importantly, just not seeking the investments, but what kind of government policy changes that you are actually doing and even anticipating to do to be able to attract these investments on a sustainable